Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. Today we'll be taking a look at Godkin, which has been requested a few times in the past, so thank you for the suggestions. The term Godkin refers to descendants of the six great gods. The six great gods were a group of Yggdrasil players that arrived in the New World about 600 years before Ainz. The six great gods protected humans from monsters when humanity was much weaker and on the point of extinction, and as a result are now worshipped by the Theocracy as gods. Naturally, being players, they were far stronger than most beings in the New World, even during the rule of Dragon Lords, and their descendants are no exception. The Godkin are not only exempt from human limitation, but shine massively beyond humanity's limits. Clementine even once pointed out how Godkin had the power to destroy entire continents. Even among the Godkin though, there is a disparity in power, which leads to the subgroup known as Awakened Godkin. The Awakened Godkin are said to have awakened the power of the gods and are far stronger than most Godkin. In a private discussion between Zesshi and the Black Scripture's captain, the strength of Awakened Godkin was compared to that of Dragon Lords, and that only someone of their caliber could beat an unequipped Shalltear. In addition to their innate strength, another advantage Awakened Godkin hold compared to the rest of the New World is that they are equipped with items from Yggdrasil, passed down by their ancestors the six great gods. Despite having the blood and gear of players, however, it is worth noting that the Awakened Godkin are still far inferior compared to players themselves. In fact, the Godkin are even considered inferior to NPCs from Yggdrasil. The power disparity is to the point where the Theocracy's cardinals admitted that despite having 3 Awakened Godkin that we know of, they have no deterrent against Ainz, as the Godkin stand no chance against him. Despite all this, Godkin are also known by the term demigods and are allowed to have multiple wives. The Theocracy's laws never forbid polygamy amongst Godkin, most likely to encourage as many powerful offsprings as possible and in turn bolster the Theocracy's fighting force. This is further supported by the fact that an order was given to the Black Scripture's captain by the higher-ups to increase birth rate amongst his wives. As hinted at earlier, we currently know of 3 Awakened Godkin, although there was a 4th in the web novel and there is a 5th in the mobile game. So let's take a look at them. The first Godkin we are looking at is Antoline Heran Fouche, who is more commonly known as Zesshi. Zesshi is the extra seat of the Slane Theocracy and the illegitimate daughter of the elf country's king, Hogan. Her nickname comes from her epithet meaning end of death, end of life. In Japanese, the epithet is pronounced Zesshi Zetsume, and hence this is where her nickname comes from. Personality-wise, she is bored of everything and has only shown interest in anything a handful of times. The majority of the time, this is related to strong opponents for her to face and bloodshed. She claims one day to wish to be beaten by an opponent. If this opponent were breedable, she claims to wish to have an offspring with them and gets giddy with excitement at the thought of how strong their offspring could be. In her fantasies, she claims not to care about their looks, personality, or race, and cares merely about the fact they are stronger than her. That said, when faced with a stronger male opponent, she soon forgot about these ambitions and only wished not to be beaten. Zesshi hasn't faced defeat in the Theocracy as she is the strongest member of the Black Scripture, including the captain. Zeshi's lack of interest also extends to those around her, and she is unfazed by the death of her comrades. The only person she is known to have cared deeply about is her mother, who she loved and cherished. On the flip side, she has an overwhelming hatred for her father, who kidnapped her mother from the Theocracy and then non-consensually violated her until Zesshi was conceived. This anger is strong to the point where she has insisted the Theocracy goes to war against the Elf Kingdom just to seek revenge for her mother's treatment. The other side effect of her birth is her deep shame for her half-elf race. This shame extends to the point where she covers up her ears to hide her elf nature. As for her actual strength, Maruyama confirmed in a tweet that Zesshi is stronger than Lupus Regina, and according to Clementine, Ainz's physical abilities without Perfect Warrior were second only to Zesshi and the Black Scripture's captain. She stands at level 88 with 5 levels in Lesser Valkyrie Almighty and another 5 in Assassin. A further 7 levels are in Weapon Master and a single level in Rogue. Additionally, she has 10 levels in each of the following job classes: Fighter, Master Fighter, Berserker, Executioner, Cleric, High Cleric, and Inquisitor. Her martial arts also consist of some staples we have looked at in the past, such as Evasion and Greater Evasion. Additionally, she has Greater Reinforced Defense, Greater Ability Boost, and Greater Ability Sense. Her other utility options are Greater Piercing, Instant Counter, and Flow Acceleration. And as for her offensive options, we have Double Air Slash, Greater Wind Strike, and Steel Arm Strike. Where her kit gets particularly interesting, however, is her weapon and then more importantly, her skill. Her weapon goes by the name Charon's Guidance, and it is a war scythe with a particularly long handle. The previous owner of this weapon was the god of death Shoshana, and it has some rather apt abilities considering its previous wielder. The scythe allows the possessor to cast various spells. The overall cast limit for these spells are 5 every 4 hours, although some individual spells have their own cooldowns. The first is Undead Flame, which surrounds the target in mystical flames of negative energy, which then engulf the enemy when the flames make contact. Undead Avoidance protects the wielder from unintelligent undead, while disease causes illness. Sleep to the Undead triggers a chance to destroy an undead without turn resistance in a single hit, and Evileye lets the user select an ability from the different gaze effects. In a similar vein, Death Mask protects the caster from gaze attacks while strengthening the feat effect caused by the user. Additionally, the third tier spell Create Undead allows the user to summon low-level undead. And finally, we have the 8th tier insta-death spell, Death. This one has a unique cooldown of 2 uses every 8 hours. Spells aside, the scythe can also summon up to 30 spear-wielding skeletons called Spartiate every 24 hours, with only 5 being allowed simultaneously. In contrast to Charon's guidance, not much is known about her armor. Its title is Neko's White Armor and was once worn by the god of wind. And finally, Zeshi's talent is considered one of the 10 strongest across the continent. Zeshi's talent allows her to use the trump cards of the past players by wielding a piece of their equipment. This only gets more ridiculous when you realize that Shoshana's ultimate trump card was the goal of all life is death. So by wielding Charon's guidance, she has the same trump card as Ainz himself. And then up next we have the Black Scripture Captain. The Captain doesn't have an official name, but we do know that he's the first seat holder of the Black Scripture. The Captain is a very dutiful man who takes his position seriously. According to Mariyama, when he lost his encounter to the extra seat, aka Zesshi, he has since become an upright and honest character, implying that he didn't used to be as diligent. Mariyama describes him as the kind of character to go BAM! However, he was thrashed by another stronger character and made to wash his face in horse piss, and was made to say iron trash, and so became a much more well-rounded character. Moving on to his abilities, we know that reviving dead team members is a part of his duties as captain of the Black Scripture. We also know that he is the second strongest member of the Black Scripture, second only to Zesshi. According to the third seat of the scripture, he is one of only 2 godkins who are able to deal with an army of Death Knights and Soul Eaters, the other naturally being Zesshi. We don't know his exact level, but the author stated that the captain has more levels than almost every councillor of the Argon Council state, except Platinum Dragonlord and his controlled armor. Considering Pandora's actor estimated the armor to be around level 90, Shalltear estimated the armor to be around level 85, and Albedo estimated the armor to be around level 80, we can estimate him to be in his high 70s to low 80s. But it is worth bearing in mind that this is a guess based on the NPC's own estimate. We don't actually know any of his abilities or powers other than the aforementioned resurrection. In the mobile game Mass of the Undead, he has a number of abilities that revolve around dealing physical damage with his spear, such as Drill Staff and First Strike, and another that boosts his physical damage. A lot of these mention stats like critical strike chance and defense, which feels very much like it's oriented towards the game mechanics, so it's hard to tell how well this translates to his actual abilities. It is also worth pointing out that the aesthetic of his staff and armor differ greatly, implying that at least one of these came from the 6 great gods. Equally, both pieces could have come from different gods like with Zeshi's equipment. Moving on to the final member of the Awakened Godkin, we have Faine. Faine is Zeshi's mother and used to be the Theocracy's trump card. After suffering at the hands of Decim Hogan, Faine became broken and cold and utterly hated Zesshi for being her violator's daughter. Zesshi believes Faine did have some love for her because Faine never killed her. Faine also trained Zesshi, and Faine had no issue if the training she put Zesshi through killed her daughter, as she was strong enough to survive resurrection if needed. Although Zesshi never died from her training, the regiment was strict and involved Zesshi being beaten within an inch of her own life. Like with the captain, we don't know much about Faine's abilities, only that she was the strongest defender of the Theocracy at the time. She also had access to healing magic, and a club was the weapon she used to beat Zesshi bloody and crying. On that uplifting note, that wraps up pretty much everything. So let me know your thoughts down below. If you enjoyed, a like and subscribe would be greatly appreciated, as it really helps out the channel. Our Discord server is linked in the description, so please feel free to join that. And thank you very much to Q Mystic for the incredible thumbnails. Their channel will also be linked in the description below. With all that said, thank you very much for watching, and I hope you have an awesome day.